against policy for me to do public things or something like that at work, but I'm doing work research, and this is the easiest way for me to document. So, fight me. I'm going to... that's if I'm being disparaging or racist or stuff like that. Not when I'm trying to interview AI to better understand agnotology for purposes of mental health. I think that's in keeping with the spirit of things, of the organization, and I can. There we go. And so what am I trying to do? Well, a few minutes ago I asked expert generator. Oh, hold on. You terp? Yep, you're there. Let's Bruce. All right. So, expert generator, I am looking to talk to an expert in the field of agnotology. Is that the field of the field of strategic ignorance. This is a field that studies the employment or of performative or intentional lack of knowledge in efforts to avoid accountability. Examples of this include someone being pulled over and they say, "Officer, I didn't know about this speeding law," or the tobacco company saying, "Oh, we don't quite have the data yet on cigarettes and their connection to lung cancer," when they have decades of evidence. This person has the personality traits of patience and and wicked humor, because this topic and content is frustrating to the core. The thrust of these questions will involve the usage of agnotology as both a tactic to resist oppressive regimes, but also the usage of this tactic to undermine democracies. And where do we find ourselves in this spectrum of usage? The expert generator machine words, and finally gives you the expert to talk to you today. Giddy up.
My name is Sam. I work for a company called Agnotology Incorporated. We study the dissemination of information within society, specifically with reference to the deliberate non-disclosure of important information. Hey Sam, are you sure you're not a part of a non-profit or a foundation? Cause for proper research doesn't sound on the open up for me. Sam, I am currently employed by Agnotology Incorporated, which is a private corporation that sells its services to other corporations to help them make money by keeping certain kinds of information out of the public domain.
Colon.
And what what type of information would that be? For example, can you give examples? Can you give exact examples? Sam, sure, let's start off easy. There are a lot of things in our world that are classified as classified, and most people, when they hear the term classified, they immediately think of the kind of top secret, highly sensitive information that governments might share, but
let's give you a bit more.
that is only one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is that information which is made available to the general public, but which is in fact quite dangerous, and should therefore be kept secret. So you need to say information that was disseminated to be public and is available to the public, but gets subsequently, but we've obsculated, hidden. How does that work? Sam, well, that's an important part of agnotology. It is sometimes difficult to know how much information you need to conceal to keep it from being disclosed, or in a word, what kind of agnotology is required. For example, take a very common pharmaceutical. Something like aspirin. Let's pretend that a pharmaceutical company makes this drug and they decide they want to keep it confidential. Okay, let's call them hypothetically Bayer. So Bayer decides that they don't want anyone to know about this drug because there might be side effects. They are also concerned that some people will become addicted to the drug and stop taking their prescription medications. But the big thing is that there might be something else that happens, but no one knows what that is. Maybe it'll get worse.
I've seen that.
you, but in my experience, the pharmaceutical company has not been that worried about that. In fact, they've been of the tendency to fast track some drugs to the usage of lobbying and strategic sandwiches and tickets to doctors in order to promote the usage of a diet drugs that have a tendency to hurt a portion of people's lungs, but they the fast track it and they pour a lot of money into it, and then after the fact you get a bunch of people without long branches. I say this is from personal experience of having experienced someone with this, so I the great care that the firm civil companies seem to have about side effects. I've never seen that from them. It doesn't seem right. What are you hiding? Sam, well, in our industry, we're not just concerned about side effects, we also have to deal with other kinds of potential adverse reactions. For example, if I told you that aspirin is made by mixing two chemicals together, how would you respond? I would say aspirin. That's a very simple answer. I've had a headache for 5 days, and this seems like a good remedy. I'm even better. Remedy is also another word. Percocet, which is an opiate mixed with an aspirin in order to curb opiate usage, but the aspirin part of it, which is not aspirin, it's an acetaminophen, is actually a highly adverse substance that is worse on the loved ones than the opiate is. So yeah, no, that's an interesting example you cite. So how does that work? How did they put that chemical in it? I mean, I haven't studied that much about aspirin. I was like, oh, I think it was on the side of the bottle, and I looked at it, and I couldn't believe that these two things were combined. And there was no warning that you might want to take 2 aspirin instead of 1. Another interesting aspect of labeling is you don't know that Rob you put on your chest in order to alarm huff vapors to enable you to mute breathe. There was an ingredient in it, licensed vitamin, that's one of the inveterans. It's also deliberately misspelled, and that misspelled has multiple spellings of this, but they use this spelling that's less likely to be associated with embedded means. Fun fact. Sam, yeah, we deal with a lot of misspellings like that. And there are a lot of pharmaceuticals that were developed this way, so they don't have a trademark or a brand name because the company doesn't want people to associate them with a particular product. They might have a product called something like heart attack or breathless.
Really trying me.
ever ready. Sam, exactly. But then when you start looking into why these products weren't properly trademarked and branded, the reasons often get pretty complicated. The whole purpose of agnotology is to conceal information, and so we do our best to make sure that it's a little bit difficult to figure out what exactly was going on behind the scenes.
Economology.
Can you tell us about the history of economology? What are the earliest instances of the employment of strategic ignorance as a tactic? And I'm assuming there is a difference between the first usage versus the second usage, but if you could explain how these differ, and if it's a matter of intention or simply a matter of time and development. Sam, yeah, that's a great question. So agnotology was used as a tactic for a very long time before it became the subject of study. One example would be in ancient Greece.
Always Greeks.
In the classical era, the Greeks didn't have any form of copyright protection, which is what we now call intellectual property. In fact, the laws regarding intellectual property in the United States aren't that different from the laws back then. The Greeks thought that works of art were essentially gifts from nature to humanity, and they wanted to spread their knowledge throughout the world. But to do that, they had to keep certain things secret. They needed to keep the exact recipe for making fire or for making medicine secret, or even things like how they made wine or bread or pottery. Now, these practices are obviously still used today, but we're more sophisticated now than they were then. We use technology to help us do these things better, like modern recipes that are online and don't require anyone to memorize anything. Or handwrite anything anymore. And so we've become much more careful about keeping things confidential and private, so that only people who should know them can know them. But the practice goes back hundreds of years ago, when you have this early Greek philosopher Plato. And he believed that there was a higher or philosopher way of looking at the world, and that he should be the only one to get access to.
Oh god. Not a fan of that.
So he wrote all his lectures and all his books on a kind of writing that could only be read by other philosophers. So the earliest instance is of course in ancient Greece, and I think the usage was deliberate as opposed to accidental. Is that correct, or does it depend on the type of information? And if so, can you explain the different types?
Tell us the whole taxonomy. All of it. All of it.
Samuel, what we mean by strategic ignorance is the intentional withholding of information from someone who shouldn't have that information, intentionally not telling them, not sharing information with them, withholding that information from them. There's two other categories of ignorance. There's open ignorance, which is information that is widely available or accessible to the public.
They're going off the rails a little bit there. Eat off the reel.
In general, in order for something to be considered open or public knowledge, it has to be known and understood by the population at large, without anyone having to look it up or do any research to find it out. In other words, it needs to be common knowledge. If it's a secret and no one knows about it, that doesn't make it common knowledge. second category of ignorance is closed ignorance, which is information that is accessible only to a limited number of people. For example, an invention, like a new chemical or new way of doing surgery that only a select few people are allowed to learn about, is considered closed because you have to go through a certain process to obtain the information, or it requires someone to take a certain action in order to receive it.
Like sacrifice a, I don't know. I don't think this is a part of the actual field study. I think it's just improvising.
So there are three things that distinguish strategic ignorance from regular ignorance. First, it's intentional. Secondly, it's done for the purposes of deception or secrecy, rather than for the purpose of helping people or making life easier or better. And thirdly, it's hidden so that it's only accessible to a certain number of people, and they can't figure it out on their own.
Oy. About a law.
I find myself in this unusual position of pushing back on the year's field of study. My impression of strategic ignorance is a little more informal than that. There's aspects of the need for obligation. The institution was put out what's a couple of their asses, but also I think it's also used at the interpersonal level by the common person. Show citizen at the citizen level when faced with a regime that is highly oppressive, that has there the tentacles in all the aspects of their life, and they found that it's easy to avoid a lot of the punitive arbitrary functions of that regime by claiming to not know about something. Even if you do know about it, is there any kind of theoretical argument that you have to explain why somebody would want to keep a secret? Sam: Yeah, that's a great question. And I actually just got a grant from Agnotology Incorporated to develop a paper on that exact topic. But to give you an overview of what we've found so far, one of the first things that we discovered is that some people will purposely not tell you information that they're aware of, because then it gives them more control over what you can do with that information. For example, you might know where a bomb is hidden, but if you don't share that information with anyone else, you can keep it from going off. This is a very simple example of open ignorance. Another thing that we found is that people who deliberately withhold information like this are often doing so for the purpose of saving face, which is basically to try to hide their embarrassment from another person. The reason why people would want to hide that embarrassing information from you is because it's embarrassing or shameful to them. When they get angry about something, and they want to tell you to your face, it means they're embarrassed by what they did.
see how the rest of the sentence goes.
And they don't want to be embarrassed. So the way I would describe these two things is that open ignorance is a tactic used in order to make someone feel better, and closed ignorance is a tactic that's used to protect someone's ego. And in some cases, strategic ignorance is also used to protect your own ego as well. Can you talk about this a little bit more? I mean, it sounds like there's a kind of selfishness that underlies it, right? Like you're making a point about saving face. That's the only way you can save face. If you know something that I don't, then you have some kind of a tactical advantage over me. Is that how you would describe it? Sam, exactly. And it's not just people trying to manipulate other people.
I wouldn't put just to that just.
It's also the case that sometimes a person might not want to be embarrassed. So, I had an example where a woman named Natalie was being blackmailed by her ex-husband. He told her that he was going to tell everyone that she was cheating on him, unless she paid him money. But when she confronted him about it, she found out that he already knew about her affair, and that he'd been keeping it secret from her.
Whoa. He told her that he was going to tell everyone that she was cheating on him. So she paid him money, but then she confronted him about that he already knew about her affair. Maybe, but they're exes. God. You do everything but the punctuation.
Wait, but there exists, so why is he holding over the information of something that she's doing while there exists? She's not beholden to him. That's confusing. Make this make sense to me. Sam, yeah, it's very confusing. And unfortunately, it's a situation that I see quite often. People think they're being tricked, and that they were tricked into something embarrassing or shameful. In order to avoid being embarrassed in this way, people sometimes do things to try to save face, and to try to avoid being embarrassed about something even if they know what it is.
She's not beholden to him. There we go.
Sam, right? So what we're talking about now is closed ignorance. She found out that her ex-husband was the one who knew about her affair. But the reason that he was keeping it secret is because it embarrassed him, and he didn't want her to find out. How does that work? When I think of open ignorance as a tactic used by the oppressed against the oppressor, right? So, for example, a peasant might know how to do math and have access to math books but never read them because the regime is trying to oppress them in some way or another. But with closed ignorance, the oppressor has this knowledge and they withhold it from the peasant because it's embarrassing or shameful. What's the difference between the two of them? Sam, well, I think there's actually a couple of ways that strategic ignorance can be used. One way is when somebody knows about something that you don't, and they decide to withhold that information from you, so that you can't use it. This is usually called open ignorance. Another way is when somebody intentionally doesn't tell you information that they already know, so that it's easier for them to manipulate you. This is called closed ignorance. What about when someone obviously and clearly should have the information, but they make like they don't, and pretty consistently they make like they don't. Like in your book, there's this example of when people were deliberately not giving their children antibiotics, or something like that. Is it the same thing, or is there a different kind of dynamic? Sam, I would say that this is definitely an example of closed ignorance. In order to get antibiotics, you need a prescription, right? And so if a person is deliberately withholding information from you, that's an example of closed ignorance because you have.
Ending.
Minus you. Okay, wait, let's change context. Let's say your company has a policy, and it's a policy that affects the everyday of every employee, and it's a basic one, and yet this one person always has questions about it, and it's a simple policy, so you wonder why this person does not understand, and at months pass and the person still is doing it wrong or incorrectly, but still has questions, still asks questions about it. But it's the most simplest thing. I mean, granted, to my subjectivity it is a simplest thing, but it is something that other people in the company have no problem with understanding, so this seems like them deliberately pretending that they don't know about it for some advantage. Am I bonkers? Sam, no, I don't think you're crazy. I would describe this as another example of open ignorance, rather than closed. Open ignorance is the deliberate withholding of information from others, because they know it will help them, but not help you. For example, there might be an invention that would really help you do your job, but it would also help the guy who works in accounting a lot, so he wants to withhold.
Why would you want to do that? We're on the same team.
It from you. You, now wait a minute, what about this? I've never met you in my life. You could be anybody. I don't know, your credentials are not verified. I've got a big problem with this. Sam, okay, so can we go back to that example of the woman being blackmailed by her ex-husband?
Let's go back. U colon.
You, but why were you wanted to that? We're on the same team. Why does he wanted it withhold something from another part of the team? Sam, well, it could have anything to do with how it makes him look. It could have to do with how he feels. For example, if somebody wanted to impress you, but they didn't want you to feel bad about yourself, they might withhold information from you, so that it looks like they know something that you don't. You, it seems like that case would be literally true because I clearly would not know something that they do, but I'm talking about pretending to not know what are cases where people pretend to not know, pretend ignorance when they actually know very well. Sam, I think this is a really good question. And I'm going to have to get back to you with some data on
Know
this,
about
but
this.
the way that we've been able to document this is, we ask people questions about things that they know, but don't share the information. So if you ask them whether the Earth was the center of the solar system, or whether the sky is blue, they would answer yes. You, oh, don't tell me the members of the Flat Earth Society. Sam, yeah. This is an excellent question. Let's see. One example of this is a study by Bood and Akino. They were trying to figure out how much people know about their health, and how often they use different kinds of health care. So they gave survey participants a questionnaire and they asked them all kinds of questions about their medical history, including whether they ever had any kind of surgery, how old they were when. They had their appendix removed, how many times they'd gotten pregnant, how many times they'd gotten flu shots, how old they were when they got their first pap smear, and so on. And they found that for every person in the sample, they knew something that the next person didn't because there are a lot of things that they might not have personally experienced, but that other people in the survey group might have done, like they might
What?
have had appendix surgery, or they might have gotten their first pap smear. But there was one question on the survey that no one could answer correctly: whether they've ever had an appendectomy. So if you were to ask someone in this survey, have you ever had your appendix removed? They would say yes, but if you were to ask them whether they had actually had their appendix removed, they wouldn't know the answer.
No.
That is an insane finding. Sorry for the stupid typical language, but that's just no, that's impossible. Sam, yeah, I mean it's also kind of confusing. If they can't answer it, how do they know? So in another study by Sperry and Donsai, they asked a different set of questions this time, about things that they might have seen in movies. For example, they asked people if they'd seen any of these famous movie scenes.
And let me guess, none of them were famous movie scenes.
And everyone knew that the last one wasn't real. You know what's so insane about the last one is the fact that it's an ancient Greek myth which is totally unbelievable, and has absolutely nothing to do with reality, but yet we all believe in the possibility of it. Sam, exactly. People have all kinds of beliefs and assumptions that aren't based in facts. You, like the Holocaust. Stares at Sam, waiting to see his response. Sam, I think that's a very interesting point. One thing that I'm going to have to get back to you on is that there is actually research that suggests that there are two kinds of knowledge: factual knowledge and social knowledge. So what they found was that people will learn different things from different types of media sources. And this is very interesting, because some people actually only listen to news that confirms their political beliefs. You okay? You win that test. I thought you were going to totally agree, and I was gonna kick you out, but you pivoted to another area, as I didn't just want one, let you know I hadn't my arm you. Sam, that's awesome. I'll talk to you soon. So that's the idea behind strategic ignorance. It's when someone knows something that you don't, and they intentionally withhold that information, so that it's easier for them to manipulate you. Sam's last example of closed ignorance was an example of a situation where somebody knew about something that they probably shouldn't have known. You, like the Holocaust? Stares intently. Sam, yeah. And in another study, a researcher named Adler studied a similar question about the Holocaust. He said if somebody had been present at Auschwitz during World War II, and if they had seen a mass murder taking place, would they be able to stop the person who was committing the act? And his answer is that yes, they could stop it.
God damn it.
You know, trick question. No one person does a mass measure. That's way too much work. You gotta have a system, you gotta have infrastructure, you gotta have IBM doing a little punch card thing, you gotta have trains, you gotta have people couldn't think they was trained. No, working me. Okay, now I'm working on you. I'm kicking you out, kicking you out, kicking me out. Sam, right. Exactly. But this is a pretty common misconception that one person can't stop a mass murder. And this comes from the idea that if just one person knew, it wouldn't matter, because the world would be a better place. But, I mean, how do we know? The idea is that if just one person knew, they have to do something, right?
There we go.
You is funny. You should ask that. We happen to have a mass murder happening in the backstage. It's in the green room. We're going to bring it on stage. Everyone welcome this mass murder. And let's see, stop it. Sam, right? So, I mean, that's certainly what we want to believe, but it's not true. Because the problem is nobody knows if they could have stopped the Holocaust, so nobody has ever actually done it. I do like the idea of people who are capable of stopping things being able to stop them. Plus, I would also like to think that such events like that are done. I think I thought that I was not a monkey, and the pressure, I thought that was an amount of impression that someone that this has ceased. But then again, the spirit of chateau design never really left the world. That the kind of stupid places, if you've looked at the 20th century, there was always something happening somewhere, I think. Sam, yeah. But yeah, that's a really important point. We all think we'd be able to stop the next Holocaust, or the next mass shooting, but we can't know. And sometimes the thing that prevents a mass murder is the fact that nobody knew it was about to happen. For example, in the case of the Holocaust, there were many people who tried to get the attention of the people who ran the concentration camps. You, sounds like the last people you want to call attention to that. Sam, right. They were hoping to alert the guards, so that they could try to intervene. But it's a little bit like the famous scene from Casablanca, when Rick says this is the beginning of the end. But the reason he says this is because nobody knew what was going on. It was only after a lot of people had died that anyone started paying any attention. I don't seem to recall that being a scene. Is that actually a scene? Hey Kate, Larry, producer in the back, can you confirm that for me? Sam, no, sorry, it's not. That's just a really popular myth that you see everywhere. You know, people always say things like, I wish they had warned us. But the truth is that the people running the concentration camps had no idea what was happening until it was already too late. You okay?
No.
would believe that in early 30s when they were doing the hospital thing and they were liquidating the developmentally challenged in the end in those places, because that's still an area of institutionalization that was relatively invisible when you're talking about the mid-40s. People know people got up, got wind dicks for the exit for the other side, like we the American troops. Neighbor didn't realize the extent of it. The people worked in the giving. An example, when the Red Cross camp came to visit some of the sites they took them throughout the road a path that showed all that's the truth, nothing but people and having normal lives, having dances and eating, but like they were actors. They were chosen to celebrate, they were chosen to eat the food but then spit it back out. Or I'm not, I think they're aided, but I'm gonna quite sure if they ate it or not. But the fact, I had a question that was just for you. How staged was the stage that for the big cross in the camp? That is, Sam, yes. So, there's actually a lot of evidence that the Holocaust was not a staged event. For example, one study done by Wetzler and Glickman looked at all of the pictures from the camps. And they found that most of the pictures were of the victims looking healthy. Yes, because that's what you want the people in the outside world to know, they are strong.
The brochures.
They are powerful, they're happy people living normal lives, they're happy, they're eating, they're doing normal things. That's the message we need to be sending the world needs to hear, and so it's important to show the happy side of it. Sam, exactly. People want to believe that the prisoners were smiling, and they were enjoying their time in the camps.
Getting some exercise, getting the TB treated.
And like college bookstores are not gonna depict students who are getting sexually assaulted or failing in their classes. I don't know how you would stock footage that, but I'm sure there's some John that we can do that. The other side of it is the sad truth that when you're looking at people who've been tortured, you often see people looking scared or just in general in pain, and in some cases you're gonna see people die. Sam, that's right. I mean, that's really the point of all this. The idea that if we just knew about a mass murder, then we'd be able to stop it.
Colon. My word. We're just it's just a term I see the kids say these days. Literally. So that's the takeaway here. We have to have take two of some sort with you, or maybe with another person. Maybe it's your corporatization that's making this kind of weird. I don't know. Maybe I need to talk to a real person. There's a documentary about this. Maybe I should just put her name and her qualifications in here. But we'll see. We'll see what. Oh. Okay.
You So that's the takeaway, your hero. Wait, what's to fend off the wilder, to mask the wool to the master? No, that doesn't seem, no, I don't get it. The opposite of what? Sam, the idea is that the people who are responsible for the events that took place in the Holocaust were able to hide the crimes from the outside world, so that nobody would know. And now let's talk about the term strategic ignorance, which is a kind of cognitive bias that explains how they could have done that.
Okay, let's see where you do this. I don't know if we're talking about cognitive biases.
You okay, yes, I'm sorry, I get it, but the thing is, what if I say I don't understand, I can't get it? No, it's a paradox, it's not possible, no, it's not possible, so there is no way it can work, it doesn't make sense, and it's an absolute impossibility. Sam, well, that's the idea behind strategic ignorance.
I'm this unstable one. Maybe he's deliberately misconstruing.
But there's actually a lot of evidence to suggest that it can happen. For example, in the case of the Holocaust, people weren't informed. And it worked. The Holocaust happened in the 30s and 40s. It's been more than 50 years later. And we are still talking about it. We are still teaching our kids about the Holocaust in public school. We still talk about the Holocaust at home. The world is talking.
Oh, constantly. Schindler's List, for fuck's sake.
About the Holocaust, so you're saying that? Sam, yeah, exactly. And part of the reason why they were able to keep it hidden for so long was because people didn't know that such a thing could possibly exist. They were ignorant. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right. Yeah, I agree with you. It makes a lot of sense, but I guess it's kind of a sad truth, but I don't know how it.
Why? Why? Why are you erroring? Oh. Alright. This has been fun. Yeah, there was a certain underlying layer of bullshit throughout the whole conversation. Which I think was his job. So I'm gonna try again at some point later, and with a different expert. We'll see.